Welcome back, folks, to the Lucia Show. You know, it's interesting. We talk about how to survive a bear market, and we look back at the last 5 years, 21% compounded returns. That's how you survive it. Isn't that how you survive it? You just hang on. Like Sloopy, hang on. Because sooner or later, the market does come back. And a 21% compounded rate of return makes up even for a 57% peak to trough decline. Now, you're not going to get rich. I get that. But that's how you survive a bear market. Joining me in studio, Lynn Rowe, certified financial planner. You've survived many bear markets when you were doing all of your CFP stuff. Now you focus on women, investing, stress, healthcare, long-term care. And I'm reading this with good reason. Americans stressed about affording retirement. 86% believe we have a retirement crisis. This on top of the fact that most women end up being caregivers, worrying about sending their kids off to college and taking care of mom who's in a wheelchair.
Talk about stress. There's some major ones all at once.
And stress, you know, is the big killer. And I'm not suggesting that money will resolve the entire stress issue, but it certainly can help.
It can help because it can help you get help. And with all of those types of things, it means having somebody there alongside you to do the heavy lifting, so to speak, literally and figuratively.
So estimating healthcare costs in retirement, the Wall Street Journal covered this, I guess it was last week. It says a new report suggests that people approaching retirement look at healthcare expenses in later life in terms of recurring and non-recurring services and offer some numbers that can be helpful. What they're talking about basically is the recurring expenses. Well, you know what the recurring expenses are. They're the stuff that hits you between the eyes every single month. And the non-recurring ones is like a baseball bat hitting you on the side of the head, right, because you don't expect them. How do you deal with that?
Well, for one thing, you're right. The recurring ones, you know that they're going to happen. You just don't know the price tag. And that price tag can often cost you the dollars in your retirement plan that might have been earmarked for the non-recurring, the major things like the extended care needs. Oftentimes I'll talk to a couple and they'll say, well, we think we're going to be fine because they've got enough assets. What they're not taking into account is the fact that, as we saw in a Fidelity study here recently too, that there's $250,000 of expenses over and above your normal medical costs expected to hit retirees after age 65. So $225,000 is expected to come out of that portfolio. If you add on to that the need for somebody to be in care, one of a couple, and we know the stats on that are just staggering. It's 70% of couples, one of them is going to need some form of care. And if you add on to that another, say, $225,000, $500,000, I mean, that takes a big bite out of any retirement plan. Well,
and with life expectancies now extending, what we've learned from the Society of Actuaries, that in the last 15 years, people's life expectancies has expanded, women over 2 years. Yeah. So now we've got to add 2 more years, and those 2 years may not be the healthiest of years, but people are staying alive longer. So let's go through the laundry list, and then we'll talk about specialists here in a minute. But there are some laundry list items. Person turns 65, they sign up for Medicare.
Right.
Now, they can do Medicare Advantage, which is like the HMO Medicare, right?
Exactly.
Or they can get regular Medicare, but they'll need, or at least should buy, a Medicare supplemental health policy, correct?
Absolutely should have a Medicare supplement policy, one way or the other, because there's going to be a lot of out-of-pocket expense without it.
Okay, now how much do those normally cost?
Depending on the age and location, I mean, you can be spending anywhere from, say, a couple hundred up to $500 a month. Depends on...
Really? That much? So pretty expensive insurance. So,
but that's also including things like, you know, your supplement for your prescriptions. I mean, that's not, that's not...
so that's the whole enchilada. So what about that? That's Medicare Part D, the prescription drug donut hole thing?
Yep.
Yeah, so you're going to spend a few $100 a month post-retirement on health care just to cover some of those expenses that Fidelity says are going to be 220 grand
Right.
or whatever. So if you have insurance in place, that will help, but there's still going to be out-of-pocket expenses. You go
Absolutely.
to the pharmacy, et cetera, you buy aspirin, it's not covered by the donut hole thing,
Right.
Or whatever. There's travel back and forth to the doctor's office.
right.
There's care that comes in. Let's talk about care for just a minute, because not everyone needs care because they cannot perform 100% of the activities of daily living. You and I have been talking about this for the past several weeks, and I don't want to belabor the point, but there's just a lot of people that need companionship. So how do you deal with that?
Well, there are plans, or I should say there is a plan in particular that can help with that, because you don't have to go through the proving that you don't have the ability to perform all of the 6 activities of daily living or have cognitive impairment. In fact, you buy a package of hours rather than dollars, and that's a unique package, and it's wonderful.
So yeah, I'm trying to wrap my brain around it, because you've been
it's a tough
talking about it, and I'm trying to figure out how in the world anybody could do that and make money. So I'm going to sell you, 50 hours a month or 20 hours a month for X amount of dollars. And, 2 months later, somebody's going to show up and spend half a day with a parent or a grandparent or whatever. It works out to like a few pennies an hour.
Well, it works out to a very inexpensive cost, but the bottom line is you have a package of hours, just like with long-term care insurance, you have a package of dollars. You want to spend them wisely. You want to be, frugal and wise with them. You don't want to just throw them away to have a game of canasta.
Okay, so that's for the individuals that aren't sick. I mean, they're lonely,
yeah.
And they need help, or maybe they need someone that'll drive them to the store and stuff like that. But
Exactly.
the activities of daily living are as follows, Lynn.
Bathing, eating, dressing, toileting, transferring, and continence.
Great. I just love it when you say that word. I don't want my wife doing that. I don't want her to have to worry about taking care of me. Number one, I think it's sort of gross just because, and I know so many spouses do it and they don't think it's gross, but I don't want my wife, having to take care of me that way. I want some nurse.
What's
even worse? 400-pound nurse.
Some guy that's, Bruce, he's going to lift you up.
Or guy, could be, of course.
Fred. Actually, I've had family caregivers for family members, or caregivers, I should say, for family members. And in the case of gentlemen, 2 caregivers, both guys, were very helpful. Very helpful. They could lift him, they could get him in and out of the bed and so forth. So it was very helpful.
Okay, well, like as in any other type of industry, it pays to have a specialist that you can work with, because a specialist knows all of the ins and outs. For example, I have a background in this stuff. I had no idea about this, non-care program that Lynn follows. So we'll take a quick break and come back, and we're going to ask the question why a specialist can be the difference between success or failure for mom, for dad, and the caregiver. That's coming up, so stick around. 844-RAY-SHOW if you have a question for Lynn, retirement planning, long-term care planning, 844-RAY-SHOW. Back to Lynn Rowe, a certified financial planner. Thank you, Lynn, for that. Listen, we were talking before the break about areas of specialization.
Right.
Now, as you know, me growing up as a financial planner, early on I specialized in retirement planning. And I learned everything I could, and I'm a nerd when it comes to reading the research reports and all that stuff, and I still do. I love the stuff even though I'm retired now. I think you have a much greater degree of success if you're dealing with an expert. If I need heart surgery, I want to go to the Houston and have one of those guys at the clinic down there cutting on me, or the Mayo Clinic or something like that. Not that I don't trust San Diego heart surgeons, but it's just you go where the person is experienced. In your field, there are very few financial planners, stockbrokers, etc., that have taken the time to learn. I didn't, for sure, the expertise. I knew around the edges, but not into the weeds like you are.
Well, you know, you've heard the expression, know just enough to be dangerous, and I frankly think that that's the case.
Well, that was certainly me, but I always had you and others that I could rely on to just say, hey, take care of this for me, because I hated doing it. I really did. It was so important, but I hated the nitty-gritty of all this long-term health care, or health insurance in general.
Yeah.
It's also the reason why I got out of the 401k business, because it was a lot of laborious detail and not a lot of fun time with the client, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, and it's not only a specialization in the financial planning world, it's a specialization in the insurance world. There are insurance agents that don't understand. I get referrals from insurance agents who don't understand and don't want to understand about the need for long-term care, what that means, what that looks like financially, what the alternatives are, you know, what the downside is, what the insurability factors are. I mean, all of those things come into play. And then you get into the alternatives like critical care, short-term care. I mean, there's so many alternatives depending on the state somebody's in. When somebody has a health issue, we can look at some of those alternatives. We've even put packages together where there's one type of plan that's strictly home care custodial, and then another overlaying on top of that that does nothing but skilled care at home. So you've got the best of both worlds at home. And I'm telling you, from state to state, individual to individual, the needs are going to be different. And if you don't have all those tools and understand how those tools work, you can't really do a good job for the client.
You know, I've been learning more about this, and of course I do follow it to a certain extent. But for individuals that are uninsurable, the only options have been like these annuity contracts where you take a lifetime income annuity, and if you end up going into a facility, they double the income benefit. And that's certainly better than no insurance at all, right?
It's a good tool, yes.
But now you've come up with something that perhaps could work better, or is that only for people that are insurable now that might be uninsurable later?
Well, there are critical care plans that have very limited underwriting questions, so you can get around a lot of the things that would keep you from getting long-term care insurance and still have something that covers the major things that cause people to need long-term care, like cancer, like heart conditions and stroke and things of that nature.
Okay, we'll stop there a second, because between cancer, heart disease, and Alzheimer's, doesn't that make up most of the list?
About 70% of the claims are on those.
So is it easier to underwrite around those? I mean, is that what you do with one of these critical care programs?
It is easier to underwrite it. I've had people, for example, who could not get coverage, let's say because they had really bad arthritis, or they had back issues, or they've had, you know, multiple issues, and depending on their level of medications and so forth, they can get that kind of a plan. So we just case by case.
You would exclude arthritis conditions, but they would still be covered for the big three?
For the biggies.
Yeah, see that? I mean, this is why it's so important to have somebody that knows this stuff, because once again, I've followed it for years, although I've been out of it for 4 or 5 years now. I still read about it on and on and on and on, but nobody's ever told me that before.
I have, and with all due respect, I have cleaned up behind brokers, stockbrokers, insurance brokers who just did not understand it, didn't do the homework, and they kind of half did what I would have taken a lot longer to do, and found out after the fact that somebody was uninsurable, and then they've already got it, you know, that label on them.
You know, one of the things that I've learned as a retirement specialist is you tend to be a little more anal when it's your field. When you know everything that there is to know that you can find about a subject, you tend to be a little more detailed in the recommendation.
Good point.
Whether using a 4% rule or inflation, or, you know, as I discovered, for example, that retirees other than healthcare end up spending less money.
Yep.
So individuals that looked at their portfolios and said, I'm going to go broke by the time I'm 78, when you're plowing on 4% compounded inflation, it just doesn't happen in real life that way. And having that knowledge makes you a better advisor, a better planner.
Yes.
So you have that sort of knowledge in this healthcare field.
Right.
And I think it's a terrific benefit for people to take advantage of. How do they do that?
Give me a call.
And how would they do that?
877-270-3127.
You expect me to remember,
Of
even
course.
though, because they put it on the screen, 877-270-3127. Hey, fellas, if you made that any smaller, I couldn't read it. Probably in 6 months, my eyes will be so bad I couldn't read that number. So can you jack it up just a little bit? Now, the other thing, I see you reading one of my books here. What up with that? You stole my book.
This is a great book, this money saving mindset. Oh my gosh, there's all kinds of little things that you can do to save money. And boy, I tell you, we're all looking for that, aren't we?
We're all looking for that, and that's why my friends at Wealth Smart America are giving that book away along with my brand new book, which you will be very interested in.
Really? Finally?
Finally. There you go. I get no respect here. It's not easy to write a book.
I understand.
Especially when you're doing...
We've all been waiting.
Okay. Well, it's the Undiscovered Savings and Retirement Plan.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I will email you a copy.
Oh, my.
I want your critique on it,
oh,
along with the Money Saving Mindset, 40 ways to help you save. Now, you told me a way that you're saving money every day. This is crazy.
Now, my household secrets are out, guys. Okay, so I figured it out. It takes it takes 5 gallons just about to get that shower water warm.
Oh, you don't take a cold shower?
No.
Okay.
Don't need one.
So if you want, don't need one. I think we'll leave that one alone. But in the next 30 seconds, explain how much money you're saving by doing that.
Well, I figured out the tier that I'm at with the cost of water, I'm paying $1.80 a gallon. So that's what, $5? There's
$5 a day.
Every shower. Yes, sir.
That's $150 a month.
Put a bucket in the shower, fill it up, and use it to water your plants.
There you go. Lynn Rowe, certified financial planner, long-term care specialist, helping you save money. I don't think my water costs me that much, but it does take a while to get to the hot water.
65 rose bushes, right?
65 rose bushes. Okay, well, bring us some roses in next week.
Okay.
844-RATIO. Remember, if you want Lynn, go to iwantmyltc.net. Just remember this, iwantmyltc.net. Lynn Rowe, CFP. Thank you, kiddo.